Hello, darling friends, and welcome to another episode of Quantum Health Connections. This is the show all about being healthy from the inside out, considering the little things, the big things, and everything in between. I'm Dr. Bonnie Jewell, and today we will be looking at a very uncomfortable topic, which is ideal body weight and BMI. I want to stress that ideal body weight is not about looks. It is strictly about health and looking at the function of your body. If you are somebody that you want your body to operate really well, and so well that when you age, you have less health problems, then looking at your ideal body weight is important. If that is not important to you, then this conversation is not important. If you are looking at having your organs function, our organs need space in order to operate and do their jobs. And one thing that gets in the way of their function is the visceral fat, which is fat that surrounds your organs and basically squashes them, is how I think about it. It doesn't give them room to move. So imagine if you're just wrapped up really tight in a blanket and you're told to go run, you can't, because you can't move your legs and your arms. So that's kind of a very simplified explanation of visceral fat. However, I think it gets the point across. So if you're someone who you're committed to operating at a high level, you want to have less health issues, you want to just be able to move within life with a lot more freedom and a lot less pain, then looking at your ideal body weight is important. Some of the aspects to consider with BMI are that BMI is not always accurate. So BMI is a calculation of your weight to height. It's a weight to height ratio. There's a number 18.5 to less than 25 is considered healthy, and that is considered a healthy weight range. However, if you have a lot of muscle, if you work out and you're really strong, then your BMI could be higher and you would fall into overweight or obesity range. But that wouldn't be a reflection of your health, because if you looked at your visceral fat, you would have less of it because your weight is on your muscles. I would love it if in our world today we would just look at visceral fat. Just look at your visceral fat, because that is looking at your body's function and your health. If you are thicker boned, then you need to be in the higher level of the weight range. If you're thin boned, if you're on the higher level of healthy, you're overweight. And that would be reflected in your visceral fat. And you can measure your visceral fat through these electric scales that can put a pulse through your body and figure out what your fat is. There's also calipers that you can use. I find that just far too complicated. So when you're looking at weight range, I know that my sister she's thicker boned. The way that we figure this out is very simple. You take your hand and you take your thumb and your middle finger and you wrap them around your wrist. And you can wrap them over the largest part of your wrist where that bone is. If your thumb overlaps your middle finger, you are thin boned. If your thumb meets your middle finger, you are medium boned. If your fingers can't touch, then you are large boned. When looking at BMI, if you are large boned, you really should not be in the lower end of that scale, because you would be too thin. If you are thin boned, if you're on the higher end, your visceral fat is going to be too high. And that is an indication that it's not going to be at the ideal range. And that is an indication that that's too much for you. I know this because of my own health and figured this out for myself. One way to manage health and health concerns, so high blood pressure runs in my family. If I have a visceral fat of the top of acceptable, So the top of ideal, the acceptable ideal, if it's between acceptable and ideal, then I have to be more careful with my blood pressure. It starts creeping up. However, when I'm down in the ideal range for my bone structure, no problem whatsoever. So when my visceral fat is at a 3 or a 4 on my scale, I have very few health problems. And by that, I mean, I'm not feeling any aches and pains. I sleep better at night. I have more energy during the day. I have more clarity in my mind. When it creeps up, which is so easy to do, all that kind of goes away and I have to manage it a little bit more carefully. So if you are looking at ideal weight, I'm including a link on here. It should be at the bottom for you to look at and just investigate what would yours be for you to be ideal. If you are happy with how you're feeling, if you are satisfied with your health and the progression that you're making in your life, then stay where you're at. If you are on the scale and you're on the thin end of it, I would recommend doing some weight-bearing exercises or getting some strength on your structure. However, for the most part, really important to love yourself. And even if you are looking at this, please don't look at it and have that dictate how you feel about yourself or make yourself right or wrong about this. This is simply an objective looking at it and objectively, and is this healthy or isn't it for my body? So you need to use that for your body and not anybody else's. So this is not an excuse to skinny shame or fat shame or tell other people what they need to be doing. Even though I'm in here saying, here's what you need to do, but it's only if it aligns with your goals. So hopefully this is helpful to you. If you're looking at having ideal function in your body, you're looking at longevity and having your body work really well for the long term, this is part of it. If you struggle with, if you want to get there and you've tried all the things, look at getting my book, Vim and Vigor, Escape the Medical Merry-Go-Round, Reclaim Your Health, and Live a Long and Healthy Life. In that, I go into some of the things that are really keeping most people from improving their health. And one of the big things is the toxins that we have in our environments, because that gets absorbed by your body, and a lot of bodies will surround those toxins with fat. And once you start getting the toxins out, the fat is no longer needed, and then it becomes a little bit easier to drop just a little bit of weight from that. Exercise is also important. But if you're exercising and you're eating a lot of chemical foods, that is going to limit how much weight you can get off. So that's a little bit of tip for what we're going to go into in more detail on the next podcast. So I just want to say I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to give me your attention. And if you enjoyed the show, please take a moment to like and share. And next time we are going to be looking closely at the main and one overlooked by the medical system contributor to inflammation that makes it almost impossible to be healthy, and it makes it almost impossible to lose weight easily and keep it off. So I look forward to sharing that with you on the next podcast. We'll see you then.